In this video, we'll look at how to set up timers in Propresenter 7 and what all the options mean. Let's get started. So once we're in Propresenter, our timers live up the top here in the middle section of our toolbar. If we open this, you'll see I've already set up 3 different timers. So we're going to discuss a few different ways you can do timers, and there's 3 types of timer that you can use in Propresenter. So the first timer here is a countdown timer. Now this first box is just the name of your timer, and I've just labeled them like this to make it easy to understand. So we've got a countdown timer. So in this box here, I can choose countdown, countdown to a time, and elapsed time. We'll discuss this with the other examples here. So my countdown timer is something where I want the item to last a certain amount of time and count it down. So for me, if I'm at church and I have, say, an MC spot at the start, or it might be something like announcements, and I might have 5 minutes allocated to the announcement section of the service, I'm going to put a 5-minute timer in there, and then we're going to use that timer to display on the stage display. So the person on the stage can see the timer, but no one else can. Now over here we've got a couple more options. So the overrun option means when this timer reaches 0, so it's counting down, when it gets to 0, do we want it to stop at 0, or do we want to keep going and show how far over it's gone? So it'll put a minus in front of it and just keep on running. So I like to do that because sometimes things go over time and they need to because there's more stuff in that section, and that's okay. But we still want the person on the stage to be aware of how far over they are so that they're not just going on and on and on. So I like to overrun my countdown timers sometimes. Our second timer here is what I've called the church countdown. So this is the countdown to the start of church, or the time that church starts. So in this one here, I'm choosing countdown to a time. So counting down to a time. Now my time, as in time on the clock, is 10 a.m. So church starts at 10 a.m. I'm going to count down to that time so that church always starts. So this is really handy if you want to do a countdown on the screens in the church, or if you want to do it in the foyer so people know how long to go, and so at 2 or 3 minutes they could come into church. Or you might want to count down in the foyer to when the doors open instead of counting down to the start of the service, so people know when the doors are going to open so they can come in, which might actually be before the service. And so some churches might have a countdown to doors open at 9:55 and also a countdown to church starting at 10, and then one might be in the foyer and one might be in the church. So we can do lots of different things. So 10 a.m. and we can just choose whatever we want in here. We can overrun it so it keeps counting down if we want. And if I click start here, you'll notice there's 20 minutes and 5 seconds to go because it's currently 9:40 or thereabouts. And so that is how we count down to a particular time. So if I stop that, I can reset them and they'll be ready to go again as well. And the last one here is a count up timer, or an elapsed time. So I've just named it count up. It's called elapsed time. So that's when we go from 0 and we count up. So we can start at 0, or we can start at 5 minutes, or we can start at whatever we want to start at. We can also put in an end time if we want. So if we want it to go from 0 to 5 minutes, it will end at 5 minutes. Or we can just put no limit and let it count forever. We can overrun it as well. So if we put an end time, we can have it keep running. And if I click start, you'll see it just counts up. So we're going to stop that. We're going to reset it. Now there's a couple of little tricks with timers that are really important. The actual timer and setting them up is fairly straightforward, because in here, if I just go plus down here to add a timer, got my timer, I choose which type of timer, how long I want it, do I want it to overrun, and then I can start, reset, all of that. But there's lots of other things we can do. So we can put them to a slide to automate it, so when a certain slide is hit, the timer starts. We've also got to think about whereabouts we want our timer to display. So do I want my timer to display on my screen for my audience? Do I want it on my stage screen? Do I just want it in Propresenter so that I have an idea of how long something took? And if so, how does that work? Because what you can do is you could start a timer on a certain slide for, say, an elapsed timer like this. And so I might be flicking through my slides, and so I might want to just know how long the pastor preached, but he might not want to know how long he's preached on the screen. And so we can have the first slide start the timer, the last message slide stop the timer, and then the time will live here, because once it's stopped, it stays there, And at the end of the service, we can go through and check it. Or we can have it automatically reset every time. But the trick is you need to make sure all your timers are reset before your service starts again. When we first started using Propresenter, we used timers, but we'd forget to reset them before the next service, or we'd forget to stop them sometimes, which is okay because if you can't see them anywhere, it's all right if the timer's running, but we just need to make sure they're reset, ready to go. So a little trick that we use is on our very first slide of church, we have a reset all timers action, and it resets all our timers for us when that slide is hit.